Ever try to find something in like a super cluttered room?
Mm.
Where like nothing is where it should be. It's kind of what dealing with index fragmentation in MongoDB feels like.
Yeah.
Like this hidden performance killer. And we're diving deep into it today.
Okay, cool.
So you can get your database running smoothly again.
Yeah.
We've got some insider tips and even specific commands, to fight back against fragmentation.
Right. Well, it is a problem that can really sneak up on you. You think of indexes as these neatly organized,
Right.
structures that allow MongoDB to just instantly find data.
Yeah.
But in reality, over time, things can get scattered and disorganized.
Like that messy room.
Just like that messy room, exactly. And the result, slower queries, increased resource usage, and even higher maintenance costs.
So it's not just speed. It's like it impacts the whole system.
Yeah.
Now, how can I tell if this is actually happening in my database?
Right.
What should I be looking for?
Well, MongoDB actually provides a command that lets you analyze your indexes for fragmentation. Think of it as like a diagnostic tool.
Oh, okay.
So the command db ... get sibling db. This helps you peek into the details of your indexes and see if they're becoming fragmented. A key indicator is a high value for bytes available for reuse.
Right.
That's a red flag telling you things are getting messy.
So bytes available for reuse sounds like a clue in a detective story.
A little bit, yeah.
So let's say we've run this command, we find out, we've got fragmentation.
Right.
What are the usual suspects?
Okay.
What causes this mess in the first place?
You might be surprised to learn that some very common actions can actually contribute to this problem.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so frequent write operations,
Okay.
like adding, updating, or deleting data,
Right.
that can cause fragmentation over time.
Okay.
Each change can slightly shift things around in the index, leading to a less organized structure.
So even those routine database updates, those can cause problems down the line.
Exactly. It's not just about big, dramatic changes. Even small, frequent updates can add up.
Cool.
Another sneaky culprit is variable length fields. Imagine a shelf where you're storing boxes of different sizes. If you keep adding and removing larger boxes, you have to rearrange everything, creating gaps.
Right.
Similar to what happens with variable length fields in your index. As those fields grow, they can cause shifts and gaps in the index structure.
I'm starting to see how this fragmentation monster grows.
Yeah.
Anything else we should be aware of?
Absolutely. Sharding and distributed writes can make things even worse, especially if the data isn't evenly distributed across shards.
Okay.
It's like having multiple messy rooms instead of just one.
Oh, geez.
And then, of course, there are schema changes. Every time you add or remove a field, you're potentially disrupting that carefully organized index.
Okay, so we've identified the culprits. Now, how do we clean up this mess?
Yeah.
What are our options?
Well, there are two main approaches to tackling fragmentation: rebuilding indexes and using initial sync. Now, you might have heard of MongoDB's reindex command, but we actually recommend a more hands-on approach for better control.
Okay.
Dropping and recreating indexes manually gives you a fresh start.
So we're getting rid of the old messy index and building a brand new organized one.
You got it. So first, you would use the db.collection.dropIndex command to remove the existing index. And then you would recreate it using db.collection.createIndex, specifying the field and any options, like making it a background process so it doesn't block other operations.
Makes sense. But what if we're dealing with like a huge cluster where the data and the indexes are fragmented? Is rebuilding indexes still the way to go?
Well, that's where initial sync comes in.
Okay.
Especially beneficial in those scenarios. Think of it this way. Sometimes, instead of meticulously reorganizing a messy room, it's faster to just empty it
Right.
and put everything back in a planned way.
Start over.
That's what initial sync does. It gives you a clean slate for your data and indexes.
Now, what about replica sets? How do we handle fragmentation in those situations without causing, major downtime?
That's where the rollback method comes in handy.
Yeah.
It's a safer approach that minimizes disruptions. Imagine taking one secondary node out of the replica set temporarily. You can then rebuild the indexes on that node, add it back to the set, and repeat the process for the other secondaries. Finally, you handle the primary node last.
Okay.
This ensures your system stays operational throughout the process.
Wow, that's really clever. So, any other tips before we start rebuilding our indexes?
Sure.
What should we keep in mind?
Definitely. First, planning alternative indexes can help reduce query latency during the rebuilding process.
No.
You don't want your system grinding to a halt while things are being reorganized.
Right.
Second, scheduling the rebuilding process for off-peak hours.
Right.
This minimizes the impact on your users.
That's correct.
And lastly, don't forget to monitor the process using the db.currentOp command to keep an eye on things.
This is all great advice. So to wrap things up, what's the key takeaway for our listeners today? What's the one thing they should remember about index fragmentation?
Well, I think it's crucial to understand how easily fragmentation can happen, how to detect it using the tools MongoDB provides, and most importantly, how to fix it using the approaches we've discussed.
Right.
Taking a proactive approach and regularly monitoring your indexes can save you a lot of headaches down the road.
Absolutely. So to all our listeners out there, knowing how common these causes are, what steps can you take to minimize fragmentation in your MongoDB setup? Remember, a little preventative maintenance can go a long way.
Yeah, for sure.
That's all the time we have for today's deep dive. We'll catch you in the next one.